Hello and welcome along to today's Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Shane Brophy, Head of Sport in the Guardian. Shane, plenty going on this week. We'll obviously be reflecting on last weekend and Upperchurch keeping the run going for the double. We'll have Conor O'Donovan on a little bit later on. He'll be talking about both the
Conor O'Dwyer.
Huh?
Conor O'Dwyer. It's a Conor O'Donovan.
Sorry. A little slip there. But go ahead, Shane. Tell us, where do you want to start this week?
Yeah, sure. Look, I suppose we're in that. I suppose that time of the year. Like I always think when you turn into October and you're still in a county championship, you always know you're in a great place. Like, and sure, like you're into hurling semi-final weekend next weekend, and you have intermediate quarter-final as well. Like, and just looking outside and some of the squalls that are going. I hope it just holds fire for another couple of weeks, and we can get through the last of the campaign. But I know, looking forward to a busy hurling weekend coming.
And I suppose Drum and Inch have an unbelievably busy weekend, don't they?
Yeah, they're in three county, three knockout hurling matches this weekend, senior, intermediate and junior B, and there's a fair chance they could win all three of them and
Camogie.
And Camogie as well. Yeah, they're going for the 4 in a row. They're hoping to get to the final for 4 in a row. They're going to be spending a lot of money over the next few days trying to get to all the games. I think their senior Camogie and intermediate hurlers are playing at the same time. But I suppose when you have 4 teams out the one weekend, it's nearly impossible to avoid clashes between everyone. But it's a great problem to have for their supporters.
Yeah, it certainly is. I suppose in terms of looking ahead to this weekend, well, actually, before we do, just Brendan Maher joining the backroom team with Offaly. You know Johnny Kelly very, very well. His brother Martin is also one of the coaches on the ticket as well. It's probably not a massive surprise that he's made a step in this direction. He's had a year away from Intercounty, obviously, but to make some step isn't a shock. I mean, we didn't really know it was going to be Offaly, but a lot of it kind of stands to reason.
Oh yeah, it's I'm sure even for his own mindset, I suppose to see what it's like, and I suppose to be able to do it. Go into Offaly, you're going into a setup that is moving in the right direction. He knows the manager. I'd say he was glowing in his praise of Johnny Kelly, and for the 5 years he was with Boris Lee, like they had great times there. And look, I suppose with Martin going in as well, like it all seems to be in terms of Brendan and also Martin as well. Like I think Martin has been involved with Tip underage teams the last few years, just in terms of their own development, like working with senior teams. And look, they will think that Offaly, if they get their ducks in a row next year, there's no reason why they can't win the Joe McDonagh. I know that they failed to get it to the final this year, but I think they potentially have maybe 1 or 2 players that were missing last year through injury back. I think Dan Ravenhill I know he's minor, only 18, but God, he looks like a guy that's already built for senior hurling. He's a big guy, and you'd like to think off the back of Shinrone winning the county championship, and they're one club that probably didn't send an awful lot of players to the county squad. You'd like to think that Johnny Kelly will probably be ringing a good few of them to say, lads, you're good enough to go and do something for Offaly now, and that after winning the Offaly county championship, they might be willing to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I suppose then another person to mention in terms of what they're doing further afield is Declan. A 3 in a row at this stage. I mean, what an incredible achievement with Clock Balacalla. And I suppose he was talking after the win the other day against Camross, and he was saying, a lot of what they were doing, it's not overly fussy in terms of like tactically overdone, but he's certainly getting the best out of him, and it bodes well for his part in the Tipperary setup next year.
Yeah, but isn't that the Lockmore way? It's not. There's no right way or wrong way to play it. It's just the winning way. You can either go short, you can go long. It's whatever needs to be done has to be done. I always got that thing with Dennis and any of the Lockmore lads that they don't, whether it comes to hurling or football, they don't overcomplicate the way they play. They play to their strengths, and if they have 2 or 3 ways to beat a team, they'll find a way to do it. So look, in fairness to Declan, he's been very, very good, and in fairness to him, he's committed himself to Clock Balacalla until the end of the campaign. And look, it could be first round defeat in Leinster, or I'm sure maybe after the way things finished up last year with the heavy defeat to Shamrocks, they'll probably feel that if they'd love to get back to at least there again and maybe do themselves justice, like in a Leinster final if they got that far. And like you'd have to think, apart from just say potentially maybe Ballyhale winning another Kilkenny championship, there's not an awful lot to scare you in Leinster. Maybe like the Wexford champions are idle. I don't know if the Dublin champions, whoever they prove to be, will be as strong as what they've been the last few years when Coola were strong. Be interesting to see how Naas go, making the step up to senior this year, and of course Shinrone as well. So look, it's I think there's a fair chance Clough-Ballacolla could go late into the championship as well.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the first of the semi-finals this weekend, which is Drum against Kildangan. It actually gets the headline billing on Sunday at Semple Stadium. But I just kind of recap on the results from the quarterfinals. So Upperchurch Dunban beat JK Brackens 221-121. Kildangan soft Clonmel Rossmore by 114-12. Drummond 21 points, Lockmore 18, and Kilruane McDonough's 217, Toomevara 215. So they're all pretty close games there. The biggest winning margin in any of the games was 5 points, and that was Kildangan against Clonmel. And for long spells up until the red card, and just Clonmel being down so many players from the start of the season, looked like it was going the other way. But Drum against Kildangan, it's a tasty enough sounding fixture, but like, Kildangan would want to start flying at this stage. The only time that I've really been convinced by their form this year was after they had conceded a goal early enough against Brackens. They just took over the game from then on. So that was the day when I was like, okay, they're back for this year. But against Clonmel, they just went back to midland form.
Yeah, no, I think there's so many fascinating aspects to this game. I do think Drum and Inch, I think they'll play better than they did against Lockmore in this game. I thought maybe they're under a small bit of pressure playing a depleted Lockmore to get the job done. Plus, you're playing a Lockmore side that are just so hard to shake off. So, and they managed to do that. That would be a worry for Kildangan because, I think athletically and pace-wise, Drum have been very, very impressive. And that was one aspect in the first 20 minutes against Clonmel when it was 15-15. Clonmel were just played the game at a higher pace than Kildangan, and it was only when maybe Kildangan had the extra man that they were able to wrestle back control and like they turn things around, and they wouldn't comfortably enough for a finish, but they were far from convincing. Like so, it's hard to know what they will have done over the last fortnight to shake things up. Like they're. And they're still in the semi-final. That's the thing that's gnawing at me. Kildangan are in the semi-final without having shown their best form. I actually thought they were playing better in the North Championship than they have in the County Championship. I don't know where the freshness has gone. Like have they changed their trainer regime over the last few years? They look stale like over the last few weeks. But that's not to say they can't shake things up. Will they do that selection-wise? I do think like Willie Connors had lost 6 months this year with a leg injury. Instead of playing him corner forward, is he not better off maybe around the middle as a third midfielder where he's likely maybe to drift into the play, get on the ball and bring others into the play? I think that would serve them better. I think put Paul Flynn back at the edge of the square rather than starting him a wing forward and go play to your strengths. Maybe stick Billy Seymour in beside him and go 2 for 2 and allow Brian Mallochny that sort of the drift and roll maybe around the half forward line. I just think they need to. There's definitely an element of freshness to them, but I just think they were, particularly the forward line, they were very, very disappointing against Clonmel. Like, and if you're up against the energy of the likes of Fintan Purcell and Podge Campion and all these guys, the Michael Campions that Drum will bring, like Drum and Inch will just carry the ball back up the field, and like they have too many good forwards that for Kildangan will maybe that Kildangan have to try and deal with to try and slow them down.
Yeah, so I was just trying to think of some of the potential matchups that we might see in this game, and a couple of them involve the Campions, and I'm thinking maybe Joe Gallagher against Podge Campion. Put the puckouts down on top of them. And then another one, Ty Gallagher, will John Campion look to stick to him and try and shut down his play because he's obviously been so influential this season? Yeah,
like they're likely, or maybe Drum might be going on a different midfielder and maybe allow John Campion maybe to do a bit more of a breaking forward role. He's very, very good for getting 2-3 points a game as well. So like there are, I don't think I don't think either side will get too bogged down on matchups. Like, I think both will try and line themselves up to their own strengths. Because I think sometimes you hear too. I think if you get too caught up in matchups, you potentially you're playing into the other team's hands. So I think both teams will definitely go man for. Maybe you might see what Kildangan did last time. They might put Alan Flynn on Seamus Callanan, but that was more the last day that Kildangan had Declan McGrath on Cathal Burke. Is there any other forward that Kildangan on the drum side will be worried about? I don't think so. In some ways, it might serve Kildangan if they go back to basics. Maybe Alan Flynn centre back and James Quigley full back, and maybe just get stable and take it from there and get yourself into the game and maybe work the positional changes after that.
Yeah, last year in the county semi-final, Kildangan were pretty disappointing against Thurles. So at least they'll come into this and they'll be hearing from outside the camp, you're not playing that well, terrible last year in the county semi-final. So if they're not fired up for this game and if they're not going to give the sort of performance we've been waiting for, well, it's all a matter, really.
Yeah, I know. They do look like they're playing a slightly different brand of hurling than they have for the last few years. And I thought for the last 3 or 4 years, one of the important cogs in their team was Barry Hogan, and his ability, whether to go short, medium, or long, his puck outs, like the amount of times they got scores from him launching an 80-yard puck out into somebody that's running into space. But I haven't seen an awful lot that this year, as if they've actually, as if their game plan has really gone back to basics. It's just we'll wait and he'll hit it long, and I just thought a quicker pace game suited Kildangan, and they just seem to have slowed it down a bit too much this year. Maybe if they got back to that of getting Barry, maybe trusting Barry, I suppose, to maybe if the puck out is on to one of his halfbacks or onto one of his midfielders, that might be the way to get them moving.
Yeah, the one thing you'd have to say for Kildangan is those last couple of games against Clonmel and Brackens, even though they've started poorly, they have kind of taken a stranglehold of the games. Like they were 7-2 down against Clonmel, conceded just 5 points for the rest of I think the last 40 odd minutes. And I think after Brackens got their goal early doors, I'm not sure, or midway through the first half, I don't know if they scored again for the first half. So maybe it's just the slow starts is the issue with Kildangan. If they can get a fast start here against Drum, maybe they'll be right there next.
Oh yeah, that's it. And look, I suppose maybe they've been building up to this age, and not that they've been gambling maybe somewhat in terms of getting through the group stage, and maybe they're looking to peak in October. Look, they're here now. Like you throw in the Anacarty match, it was only in the last 10 minutes where they pulled away as well. So like that is one thing to say about them, is that they do seem to have the fitness levels to be finishing very, very strongly. And look, that should play to them, play to their benefit. And plus, look, discounting maybe the fact that it's 11 years since Drum won a county championship, and you have 3 or 4 guys still there, the Shamie Callans, Johnny Ryans, David Collins. None of the other 4 teams have recent championship winning experience, and you can't really discount that either. If it's maybe in the last 10 minutes and the pressure is on, the Kildangan might be slightly more relaxed. And plus, there is probably something for Kildangan to chase as well, because okay, they won it 2 years ago for the first time, but I always think, and you never take that away, but for a team to win it twice, maybe 2 and 3 years, or 2 and 4, like you sort of feel that you followed it up and you validated that first win. So I think there's still an awful lot for Kildangan to chase this weekend.
Not to mention they didn't get to represent Tipperary and Munster because it wasn't played that year. Yeah, so that would. The other semi-final, we'll obviously be talking a bit more about that game later on. But Kilruane against Upperchurch Drumban. What way are you leaning when you think about this game?
I'm just looking at the bookies, and they can't separate them. I can't separate them. I just is paper thin stuff. I came down on the side of Kilruane marginally, just on the basis that they have. Well, I think Upperchurch had the most even team. I think Kilruane have the most match winners, and maybe a Niall O'Meara or a Jerome Cahill. That's the only way I've called it, but that doesn't mean an awful lot. Then you have Seamus Hennessy. That's another thing. What do Kilruane do at the weekend in a game like this? Do you hold Seamus Hennessy back as they did against Toom, or do you start him? And get yourself into the game as early as you can. So yeah, look, I do think most of the pressure in this game is on Kilruane, because Upperchurch are already in a senior football final. They have, while you could say Upperchurch hurling probably means more in Upperchurch, they already have something tangible to look forward to. First, Kilruane, they only have to remember back to 2019, losing that semi-final to Borrisley when they had a man advantage with 20 minutes to go and they couldn't get the job done. They have more or less the same team now 3 years on. I just wonder, can they use that bit of disappointment, a bit of motivation as that little bit extra that might see them over the line on Sunday?
Yeah, if you were to just go, like yourself, if you were just go on pure talent and match winners, you would be leaning towards Kilruane. But too often they've just kind of found a way to lose, really, when you'd be like we were probably the last few years, you're expecting, when is this Kilruane breakthrough going to come?
Yeah.
Is there anything mental there with them that they might have to overcome?
I don't think there is. I do think people look at their team and I think people are expecting too much of them. I think I think they've always been at a level of county quarter semi-final team. I think the depth of their panel is not strong enough. Like, they're really pulling from 16, 17 guys. I know they have a junior A and a junior C team, but the depth below their first or second or third sub isn't really there. Look, you've seen what they had to do with bringing Brian O'Mara on as a sub with 10 minutes to go against Toom. Like, they're really down to that level. That like Craig Morgan has gone, like, he's a ferocious loss at this stage. But look, like, having a fulcrum at 6 of Niall O'Mara is so big. Like, you can base the defence there. You have Seamus Hennessy could come in there. Jack Peters playing to a high level. Like, I do think the key is if they can get a big game out of Keane Darcy, it would be huge, because I think on the other side, Paddy Green is going to score heavily for Upperchurch Stromban. So Toom or Kilruane probably need somebody to go and probably match him in some ways. I suppose Willie Cleary is going to hit his frees. He's a very good style. We know he's going to do that. Look, Jerome Cahill on Gavin Ryan at centre forward is probably going to be the key match up there. Like, Gavin is so solid at centre back for Upperchurch. He's one of those that doesn't get an awful lot of plaudits in games, but he's just very, very influential. And I do think, I didn't mention in depth, I think Upperchurch probably have more guys coming off the bench that they can hang their hat on. Plus, like, they got Dean Carew off the bench the last day. He was in America most of the summer and I think he played a few junior matches to get himself back in rhythm, and of course was brought onto the senior team the last day in the second half against Brackens, and probably helped swing that game in their favour when he came on around that midfield half back line area, where that's where they got their bit of dominance in that last 10 minutes a game to help them pull that game out of the fire.
Yeah, you'd imagine with some of those Kilruane forwards that they're brilliant when they operate in space. They've got pace and class and all that kind of stuff. Will Upperchurch will they allow them that space? Will they crowd it out? Do the I suppose the man markers to sort of crowd them out?
I don't think so, because I would have expected in that match against Brackens that would be a more maybe tight mark and turgid affair. Yet it was probably the most open of the 4 quarterfinals that weekend. So that suggests to me that Upperchurch won't get too bogged down on what Kilruane are doing. They'll set themselves up to play how comfortably they are, and that would lean itself to say that maybe that if Kilruane can get quick ball into Keane Darcy's, the Keane O'Kelly's, the Jerome Cahills, that they will get space maybe to do a bit of damage.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, Conor O'Dwyer joins us now. Conor, how are things with you?
Very good, guys. Very good.
Sorry.
We're just talking about Upperchurch there, and just what are your thoughts yourself? I mean, that win over JK Brackens in the quarterfinal. We'll come to the football in a while, but scoring the last 8 points against Brackens when looking like they were in a bit of bother just shows that this team won't go away.
Yeah, it certainly was looking very bad with it was looking bad. I wouldn't say very bad with 10 or 15 minutes to go. But in fairness, it's a team that's been hurling well all year and been maybe on a bit of high confidence wise. They beat Brackens in the football the week before, and I think that gave them a lift. That was a huge win. But I maybe we were a little bit fortunate. We dominated maybe puck outs in the last 10 minutes, and Brackens couldn't catch a break. In fairness to them, we won a couple of crucial frees as well. But yeah, to come from 5 down and to win by 3 and not score any goals you know, it was probably a bit of a surprise. But yeah, it was a great occasion. But you know, they have been playing well. In fairness, you know, they beat Sarsfields in the first round of the divisional championship. You know, and unfortunately, then we got nipped by Brackens in the mid semi final. But Brackens, in fairness, were good value for their.
That's how we lost. Is he froze? I can't hear him.
Yeah, I think he's frozen there. So, yeah, even that point though, the fact that they were able to score the last 8 points against Brackens, that just shows that there's a fair spirit there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And like even watching the last, I've watched the football semi-final on Sunday, and it's when Lochmore got that game back to, I think it was only a point down with 52 minutes gone. You think it's all the momentum was with him, and Upperchurch never allowed Lochmore to get level, and they managed to get back up the field, I think, to open a 2-point lead before like they just mentally and physically they seem very, very capable of going 65, 66 minutes in games, and like that's at this stage of the year, like that's a massive asset for a team. Like they're just so that they'll just go to the final whistle. Like that there's no way they're going to panic. That's for certain.
Yeah. Do you think it's like Kilruane, like having Cian O'Kelly up there as well? They have that kind of forceful battering ram that's an option if they do have to drive it long.
Yeah, no, definitely, and like he's a great ball winner. And I thought against Toomey Vara, it was probably his most influential performance of the year. Not only in terms of scoring 1-2, but just getting on the ball and bringing others into the play. I do think with Cian O'Kelly, I think when you take the rough edges off his game, he's going to be some player, because there are times where I do think he tries to do too much of his own, tries to go too many blind alleys when solo runs, where maybe he takes off, draw the man, slip a hand pass, and leave it into somebody else to do the score. And I just think he has, and physically he looks like he's developed a bit as well. He's more powerful. So I just think in terms of, he would be, in terms of, I suppose, to Kilruane what probably Paul Shanahan is to, and Jack Butler to Upperchurch, like having somebody that if you're in difficulty that you need a puck out one and maybe you're struggling to win a bit, you can stick it down on somebody like that, and there's a fair chance he can probably come down with the ball and either work a score for himself or maybe draw a foul as well. And we saw, as Conor said about Upperchurch, it was all about possession in that last 10 minutes against Brackens. They won possession, they sent it up to the forwards either scored it or they drew the fouls that ended up in the scores. Like, and then I say possession is 9/10 of the game.
Yeah, who's impressed you this year, Conor, for Upperchurch throughout these games, and even just throughout the dual run this year?
That's like asking someone to pick their favourite child, you know. So, a little bit. We don't have any superstars in our team, I think, and that's not to take from anybody. We have a couple of guys county experience, but our strength has been maybe in the, you know, in the even-handed nature of the group, I guess, you know. But there's a good talents, obviously. You know, I think Keith Ryan played on Tip under 20s. You know, I think he's been outstanding. Gavin Ryan has been particularly good at centre back, but he's been, you know, very good for a number of years. Luke Shannon in both hurling and football, but again, a guy with intercounty underage experience. You know, but you know, I'm loath to pick out too many more because they've all played well in both codes, and I think maybe, you know, being honest, we've been a little bit fortunate as well. I think Upperchurch have been performing at quite a high level, I would say, for the last 10 or 15 years. And you would think, and I would have thought maybe at times, did we lack that extra bit of quality, maybe in terms of real scoring forwards to get you over the lines? I think you need, to win county championships. You know, are we starting to get there now? I think certainly in football, I think particularly with Luke Shannon, I think on board, you got that little bit of quality maybe we mightn't have had up front. You know, on the hurling, you know, Paddy Green has been around a long time. You know, Paddy Green played with Colin Ryan and others in an 09 mid-final, 09 county semi-final. He scored a goal, a very young chap against Mullinahone, the quarter-final, and he's having a really good year, and particularly good, I think, the last day against Brackens, both from frees and from play. Not sure what age Paddy is. He's maybe 32, 33. Hoping not adding years on him, but no, he's been good. So and Matt Ryan, you know, and Matt the Giant, as we call him, he's been full back again. He's been in the team for the last 12 or 13 years, and you know, he's not the most stylish hurler or footballer, but I tell you, I'd hate to remarket him. I would hate to remarket him. He's been outstanding, but he's been outstanding for Upperchurch Drumban for the last 10 years. You know, it's great to see guys like Matt Ryan, who probably never wore a Tipperary jersey. You know, not sure that even hurled much in secondary school, but, you know, getting the recognition he deserves in both codes, because I tell you, he would annoy the hell out of you, I'd say, if inside forward, you know. He's very effective. You know, Mikey Lavery has come in. I wouldn't say from nowhere, he's been knocking around for the last couple of years, but suddenly he's a starter in both codes all year, a nailed down starter. And I think he's been oftentimes given the job of marking maybe the opposition's trickier corner forwards, and he's done very well. But again, we don't have any superstars. We know that. You know, do we have enough quality to get us over the line in either codes on the big day? We're hoping, but I can tell you we're having a lot of fun. We're having a lot of fun with it, you know, and certainly I think I'd be fairly confident they'll die with their boots on whenever we end up, be that in county final or be it in first round of Munster or be it in the semi-final against Kilruane next Sunday. You know, they'll give it anyway.
Conor, do you think just having already in the football final that it'll actually help them next Sunday in the hurling to be able to play a little bit more relaxed, that they already have a big prize in a final coming down the line, that it might actually help them play a little bit more relaxed this weekend? It might help them.
I would think so. But again, it's like everything. When you win, everything that happened before that was perfect. But when you lose, people did for reasons why you lost. You know, certainly we would have felt walking off the pitch against Brackets in the football that gives us an advantage. But if we'd lost the hurling, people might have said maybe the football took too much out of us. You know, but nightmare scenario last Sunday in the football would have been, and it looked like it was going to happen, the game go to extra time and then lose it, because suddenly you've lost the game and people maybe are feeling the legs and they're all saying that extra time, 20 minutes, is after killing them, you know. But when you don't go to extra time and you win, everybody thinks, God, this is going to give us a lift. And I heard a few say afterwards, God, this is worth 1 or 2 points against Kilruane. And, you know, no one knows, because no one knows even after next, what might have happened if we didn't play the football. You know, we've come through it, you know, injury free. All of Colin Ryan did get injured in the hurling. He didn't feature in the fall last week, but relatively injury free. And certainly there's a buzz and there's a confidence, you know, and I think as well, probably maybe it's the way sport has gone now, because fitness levels are way ahead of what they were 10, 15 years ago, that players are well capable of now playing week in, week out. Where to ask guys to do that 10, 15 years ago, where strength and conditioning and fitness at lower level, it would get the guys. But again, when you're winning, there's an energy around the place and there's a confidence. And I think that's maybe what seeps into guys that, you know, and Lockmore have showed that for years. And you know, is it tradition? I'm not sure. I think it's more of a guys get used to winning. And I see this in other clubs. When you're used to winning, you tend to stay doing the right things at the important juncture in games, you know, because you know you have a chance. And in fairness to Lockmore last Sunday, at the death, they were still trying to do the right things. I think that's what maybe winning does. You know, okay to say winning's a habit. I'm not sure if it's as easy as that, but it just means as you come down the tracks, as you approach the final whistle, there's a better chance you'll continue to do the right things, I think. And that's maybe what winning brings both goals.
Does it help, Conor, that of the other teams that are left in this competition, it's not like any of them have 20 county titles between them? You have to go back 128 years for Drumban winning a county hurling title, but this iteration of Upperchurch Drumban hasn't won at senior level. But like Kilruane have a few titles, but Drum and Killadangan, they've just won a piece as well.
I guess. Yeah, I guess. No, I certainly, you know, give us every chance. And I think, you know, ironically, I would probably, if I was a betting man, I would say we have a better chance to win the hurling than we have in the football, even though we're in the football final, and I'm not sure what the odds are. You know, commercials are going to be a huge challenge, you know, no doubt about that, you know, particularly in the open spaces in the stadium. But we'll worry about that, as I said last Sunday to someone, worry about that after we hopefully beat Kilruane. I think the hurl is quite even. You know, I think my own view, and I'm no expert in hurling, in Kildangan and Drum, I think deserve to be favourites. Ourselves and Kilruane, I think, are even money, even though I'm not a betting man. But I think that's fair as well. But I would think if we could get over Kilruane, yeah, I'd certainly give us, you know, every chance. You know, is it 50-50? Maybe not. But, you know, it's not that. I think we beat Drum and Inch in the stadium last year in Championship. We haven't done as well against Kildangan, but we have beaten them in recent years in Championship hurling. Certainly beat them above Indala, I think 4 or 5 years ago. You know, so yeah, listen, all 4 teams in the hurling, I think they'll all justifiably have a chance. I think the favourites for the county final will probably come out of the winners of the Drum Kildangan game. But you know what, that'll suit us just fine. We're not concerned who's favourites, but yeah, it's I suppose we're getting used to maybe now playing every week, and it is the same group. I think you probably have about maybe 13 guys that are starting on both teams, but if guys aren't starting on one, the chances they're coming on the other. So there's no such thing as and it's a great thing to be able to say, there's no such thing as a non-dual player in Upperchurch.
Sure, like, and you have your juniors in the semi-final on Saturday as well. Like, what for people, what sort of playing pool is between those two teams? Is it 40, 45 players? Like, is the club really have that? Is that about it? Like,
yeah, I'd say we've only used, after Dean Carew came on the last, he was away in the States for a couple of weeks. We've now used 18 in the senior panel. That's probably one of the reasons why the juniors have been strong. Would we have maybe 25 togging out in total with the juniors? So that's 25 plus, we'll say 20, about 45 players, I'd say. Yeah. But there aren't too many. There aren't too many of that age who aren't hurling or playing. We don't tend to lose that many. They all, if they're around at all, generally most of them, they'll all. Let's say have that, because I got this question from a friend of mine in Waterford the other day, and I think I said between 40 and 45, but we would, and sure, Bursley or no different. Shane, I guess we would have maybe between 5 and 6 underage in every year on average. We have 10 under 15 up to date. That's unusual. Under 14, we'd have about 4. So on average, you have 5 or 6 age group underage. But again, that's not unusual for a lot of rural parishes. But I think one of the big advantages we have, and I say this in context, we haven't won a county final 128 years. We're not getting carried away. But one of the big advantages we have is we've one primary school. And they all go to one primary school. Those 3 primary schools in Upperchurch ran up to about 40 years ago. They closed and they built one new school. So every kid in the parish, bar the odd exception, and then we get maybe a couple down from Kilcommon, Hollyford as well. But every kid in the parish is going to the one school, and they're very good on sport and academically and everywhere, really. And they all play
it builds a bond. You're not having lads from different schools coming to the field then of a Friday night or Saturday morning for training.
You're a kid in Upperchurch and Ban, you're anyway into sport. It's very hard to get all your buddies are playing the same team. That's been a big addition to us over the last 30 years.
How good was it the way that Upperchurch got over the line against Lockmore last week, and in general, what sort of a game was it?
Well, again, it's hard to be objective in these things, but I thought it was a brilliant game. But again, but any neutral who was there, you couldn't say but it was exciting. And I suppose when games are close, it's always going to be entertaining. But at one stage, we win 6 ahead, maybe a quarter of an hour to go. But when you're playing Lockmore, that's never going to be enough on its own. They got back to 1. Luke Shannon got pointed without the 2. I think they got it back to 1 with maybe about 2 minutes of injury time gone. And for the last 2 minutes, not sure if either of you were there, but the last 2 minutes, they owned the ball in our 45. They owned the ball. And I don't think
they never got a shot off.
No, and surprised they had 1 or 2 chances. I thought shot off. I thought at one stage Norman McGrath was going to pull the trigger, but Lockmore do what they do. Their decision making is excellent, certainly in football. And I knew they weren't going to shoot bar at least a 50 chance. Ref was never going. You're gone beyond maybe the allotted time at this stage. But in fairness to the ref, I thought did a great job. He was never going to blow, I think, while they had possession that close to goals or being pinched. But as soon then as I think Norman McGrath lost possession, or we had got our hands in the ball, and then you knew straight away he was going to blow. But I got up and I walked around. I just couldn't sit down anymore. I met, and I hope she won't mind me saying, I met our treasurer who had 2 sons playing on the team. Went for a walk up the road, right? She met Larry Mackey driving out of the pitch with it, and she had to out through the window. He told her who'd won the match, So that's the level of and maybe we're just not used to being maybe at that stage of games. But it was, my God, I don't remember a more tension-filled 2 minutes in all my life. And at the final whistle, you're conscious it's a semi-final, but you know what? You have to enjoy these things as well. But certainly we stayed on the pitch for a long time afterwards. It was a special moment. But as I say, we won't get carried away. We have a huge ask against Commercials, huge ask. But as I say, we'll worry about that.
Where I know you've been a strong football man all your life. Where is this sort of the growth in football come from in the club? Like, sometimes you see clubs come up from intermediate and their priority will still be hurling and football still is an afterthought, but you've sort of done the Lockmore Brackens thing. You've given it the respect you've deserved, and you're getting the benefits of it.
Yeah, it's evolved over the last 30 or 40 years. You know, and make no mistake about it. Like, you know, it is still a predominantly hurling area. 90% of the hurling or the training the guys do is for hurling, you know. And what's happened maybe this year and like recent years, that you've similar management teams in place. Now we've Liam Dunphy and James McGrath involved in hurling and not involved in football, and I'd say they have no background in football, but fair to both of them, I think they've given football the space it needs. But because you have the two selectors are common, and that model works in Lockmore as well, and the same in Brackens. This week, for example, last week it was all football. Now, normally I think before football they might train once perhaps, but last week it was all football. But it started, I'd say, Shane, back to your question, about 40 years ago. A guy called Patrick Phelan, I'd say, would be credited by most people with having the main influence. His nephew, or his grandson actually, was Paddy Phelan on the county minor hurling team this year.
The famous free taker.
Yeah, I think he would. Now others, you know, there's Michael Quinlan, Paddy Ryan, Seamus Hayes, a lot of guys, Billy involved at the time. But Patrick Phelan was the main driver. And he was from a place called Chef Rye, or is from a place called Chef Rye, where there's a Garda station. And many would credit the fact that there was always 4 or 5 guards from football counties came to Chef Rye, and at one stage Chef Rye had their own football team back maybe 100 years ago, you know. Patrick Phelan would have been the main driver. Back in the late 70s, we started playing parish leagues, and we always played exactly as much football as hurling. And since then, underage, we always played exactly as much football and hurling. But so did most clubs in mid-tip back when I was young. They all played football and hurling. Maybe we did a little bit more, you know, I'm not sure. And gradually, I remember we won a Junior B title with a great village in Hoddy Purses, Lord Merson, and we won a Junior A. But we got to Junior A 89. We didn't win it until another 13 years. But back then, and again, I even remember we beat Bursley in a county Junior A semi-final, actually. But back then, most clubs are probably finished hurling in June or July or August, and every club played football. You know, what's happened in recent years is that you have a better structured championship. The hurling goes on for longer, as it should, and it's getting more difficult now, you know, for a lot of clubs, and that's maybe something we're trying to address in different ways. But gradually we got up to Junior A, you know, we played intermediate. Took us 10 years to get out intermediate, maybe even a little bit more, actually, 13 or 14. And then you get up to senior, and gradually I think what happens is that when kids now come out of underage and you go play football at Upperchurch, the first year you're playing now is senior. You know, it's like Lockmore, you know, it just, you're not playing junior half your life and suddenly you're asked to play senior when you get to 27, 28. The guys coming up now are starting to play at that level. And there's an acceptance maybe within the club that we should be playing football. Even the selectors, I was thinking about this earlier on, Andy Canan and Seamus Griffin, who are two great clubmen. The selectors now in every senior hurling would have played football up along, you know, would have played football. Andy Canan and Seamus were both on the team.
And that's so important, because if you don't have that respect for the game, it'll just get pushed to one side and hurling will get it all.
Yeah. Well, you have selectors that didn't ever play football themselves or ever get the chance. Well, you know, it's more difficult. But listen, having said that, it's working at the moment, but, you know, maybe 1 or 2 bad hurling defeats and it might go the opposite direction. But the 2 biggest up to this year, you know, and again, I'm completely biased in all this, but the 2 biggest wins in my mind we had up to this year, we're going back 3 or 4 years ago. I remember we beat Killangan. I think the year would be Killangan above Dolla. And I think that was on Saturday or Sunday, in the previous Wednesday, we beat Care in the senior football game. Big surprise. In the same year, we had another big win. And we played football championship. Again, we won a football championship game, surprisingly, about 3 or 4 days earlier as well. So now if that had went the opposite way, the opposite might have happened. But I don't think on the pitch last Sunday, I don't think anyone cared that it was a football or hurling county final. Now I'm sure there are, and I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know, I saw men there who you'd say were nailed on hurling men, you know, and you know, there was certainly a smile on their face and not tearing the odd eye, you know, but you know, that's, you know, anyway, you know me, Shane, I'm when it comes to football, but you know, my first time ever in Croke Park was in 1978 in Paddycullen, with chip by Mikey Sheedy, you know, the aforementioned Pat Phelan, Tommy Ryan, the line was at the match. I remember Mike's father, Mike and John's dad. And of course, I'd have to mention the great Packy Ryan, who has 3 grandsons playing actually at the moment, Keita and Gavin and Aaron from in midfield. He was a huge football man as well, you know, but he was a man who played hurling. He was
one of our best ever players, I reckon. He was big into athletics. He was big at anything that you could run around the field, and he collected lads from college, and he died about as a Tommy maybe in the last 10 years. But yeah, he'd be happy. But he was another driver of football in the parish as well, So.
I'd say you're just looking ahead, like your football committee, it would be your honour to present the cup if you did win it on Sunday week. But you have a formidable challenge. Like I watched the commercials Mile Rovers game, and I've seen commercials play in a while. I haven't seen a physically imposing foot club team like that in a long time. They're absolutely massive, and they're athletic as well, and they can play football. They look like they found another gear from last year.
Yeah, they were impressive when they got going. Not the Mile Rovers causing loads of problems in first half, and we caused problems in the first half in our own game. But again, that's the round robin, and you got to think they needed to push it on. They did. Yeah, they're big and strong. Now we're not small either. It's not size I wouldn't worry about. It's maybe their pace in possession.
Yeah.
And
their transition is very quick.
Yeah, you take Lonergan when he's in full flow, he's impressive. Quinlivan, obviously, when he needs to do it, he can. They have Kennedy coming through, and and it's their athleticism with the ball in hand, and skill level. Obviously, they're playing an awful lot more football than a lot of clubs, certainly more than that. So yeah, listen, would I love to be presenting the cup to Elby O'Donoghue on Sunday week? Please God, we won't rule it out. I can tell you, but. Yeah, but listen, it's an honour for us all to be there, irrespective of what the result, I guess. But certainly we want to win. And as things stand now, as I said to the guys who worked, the double is on. Didn't have to correct myself saying the treble is on. With the junior A, I think they have a fighting chance, and we're still in under 19 as well. That we may, if we get there, we might be first in the county final if we can beat Camogie. Wouldn't that be a nice one? We'd I tell you, we would certainly.
I don't know if I agree with that. But just to come back to the semi-final this weekend, Conor, before we let you go, how do you see it going? And do you expect it to be a game where Upperchurch look to shut down Kilruane because they seem on the face of it to have more of the stars and the free-flowing hurlers? Or what way do you think it'll go?
I don't know, being honest. I think I saw Kilruane hurling once in my life outside in Mine Tibble too. I recognise some of the names. So I don't know, I'm not familiar with them. Are we going to start, doing anything different to what we've done before? Sometimes we play a bit of a sweeper, sometimes we don't. I don't see us doing anything hugely different. I don't think we're that tactical necessarily, but we have maybe changed our style a little bit in recent years. And like a lot of teams now, then through the lines that bit more, and at times I think this year when we struggled against Holy Cross in the second half in Clonmel because we went along with puck outs and we just got cleaned out for 10 or 15 minutes, So I think our style has adapted. As to what they'll change or how Kilruane is set up, I just don't know. There's others. Shane will give you more detail on that, but all I can tell you is that we're certainly going with a chance. I think myself 50-50. I think after the lift from last week, and I think it gives you a bit of a lift. Is it 55-45 in our favour? But no more than that. No more than that. I think the bookies have us bang on. Both of us are even money, and they say the bookies are never wrong. But so I don't know. It'll be a big game for Kilruane, obviously, as well. I'm not sure. You guys would know when were Kilruane last in the county final.
86.
86. There you go. And did he win the Club All Ireland after? Was that the year he won the?
No,
Club
they
won it just a few months beforehand.
Yeah. Boris Lee beat him in the final at 86, and they went on to win their Club All Ireland. So
okay. So obviously,
it's a long time waiting.
Yeah, I think the last time, I don't know when the last time we met him in championship. I think in the mid-90s, I think that Upperchurch and Ban beat Kilruane in a relegation final or relegation semi-final.
Could well be, yeah. No, I can't think of any recent matches, even group stage matches. Nothing is coming into my head like so.
No, or even underage. Played him in the under 15 hurling challenges, the under 17 league game, but even underage, I don't think we've met in any championship fixture. But listen, they're a club with a proud tradition, and I think a club with a bit of a football tradition. Something tells me Kilruane win a county final of football at one stage, or am I raving mad? No,
they did. Won the senior in 75.
Yeah, I thought that.
Yeah, so
their club. Yeah. Oh God, wouldn't I love? It's for discussion for a different day, maybe. But wouldn't I love to see Kilruane back up playing more adult football or playing adult football and back up and competing? That'd be the utopia, I guess. You've had more clubs, in the position for whatever reason that would be able to do that. But that's, as I said, that's discussion for a different day, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, look, Conor, absolutely brilliant to have you on the show, and best of luck with the double run at the moment. It's definitely been very exciting watching Upperchurch.
I remember the junior A's, you know.
Yeah, the treble.
Junior A's playing a good Mile Rovers team. You know, I think both the junior teams that come out of South Tip look to be strong. I think both them, as you know, in Bursley, both them and Neil are strong. You know, so we're up against it, but certainly we'll have a good crowd in Holy Cross at 2:00 and on Saturday. You know, there's a lot of experience in that team. You know, you've likes of Pat and Owen Short still playing junior hurling. You know, Owen is trained the senior footballers, and he's Conor Ford and the junior hurlers. Owen Short must be wrong. Well, if he's not the wrong side of 40, he's not far off. And of course, Pat, in my mind, is never club
stay playing when they enjoy it. There's too many lads retiring when they don't need to.
And of course, James Barry, who played in the Junior B football final last weekend, we're beaten, we're still alive. James Barry is back hurling with us as well, and he's one of the key members of that group, you know. So great clubman involved, you know. So
okay, well, thank you very much, Conor, and hopefully we'll chat to you again.
No bother, thanks, guys.
Cheers, Conor.
Okay, so just to jump back to hurling again, Éireog and Acarty Donahill are going to meet Tipperary Kenyans in a senior relegation game this weekend. What way do you think that'll go? I know you keep talking about Éireog being the relegation final specialist.
Yeah. I'm still going to give them the benefit of the doubt here. I just think they know what they know what it takes to win these type of games. Actually, it would be a big disappointment if Tipperary stay in senior only lasted 1 year, but it's where to find themselves. I think in terms of forward power, I think Tipperary probably have more scoring strength. But I just think, and these are pressure games, and Acarty know how to deal with it, and they might just find a way to do it. But I suppose the leading would be, I'd like to say, I'd love to see Tipperary stay up and get a proper second year at senior level and bed in properly. But look, I think they'll. If they're able to beat it, if they're able to come through Éireog and Acarty, they'll have deserved to stay in senior hurling for another year. That's for certain. Yeah,
and in the semi-finals previously, Éireog lost to Carkey Burris 120-17, and Mullinahone beat Tipperary 24 points to 214. Premier Intermediate, the semi-finals are also on this weekend. Burgess against Rossgray and Gartnahoe Glengool will meet St Mary's. So a couple of fairly tasty semi-finals there.
Yeah, no, I suppose the All North one, I should be able to see some of that. I know Laura are playing in the curtain raiser there before, but yeah, that first game is very, very interesting. Like, you have, even though they're two North teams, they've rarely played each other, even in championship, even whether for senior or Premier Intermediate or whatever the last few years. Like, they always seem to avoid each other. But like, you have Rossgray, probably coming under slightly more pressure, but it's like when you get relegated from senior, you're always immediately taught that you're immediate favourites to come back up. And look, they've done everything that's been asked of them so far. Maybe just apart from that, losing that North final to Portrue, and look at that, there's no disgrace in that either. Like, Portrue are a fine team, but I suppose from the interesting point for them is that, talking to their management, and that they were very, very pleased with their quarter-final win over Thurles Sarsfields. They felt it was their best performance of the year, scored 226. I suppose maybe having the likes of Valentine back is a big help. Just adds another cog to their forward line, physicality as well. As we see, the pitches are beginning to get a little softer now and slower, like having a ball winner there and a score. It just takes the pressure off the likes of Evan Fitzpatrick and Jason Gilmartin, Luke Cashin as well. So, but look, they're coming up against a tough Burgess team. Like, Burgess are just riding a high at the moment. Like, 3 wins on the bounce. Like, 3 games ago, they were possibly staring at being involved in relegation playoffs. Now they're 1 game away from being in the final and maybe going back to senior. Like, so, like, they're a club, Burgess, where if they get on, if their team gets on a roll, they're very, very hard to beat, and they're just in that sort of momentum at the moment. But I just wonder the fact that the 218 of the 327 in the quarterfinal came from Stephen Murray. I can't not think that Rossgray will not think you're not going, whatever way we're going to negate you. You're only going to score so many. Look, if other guys turn up on the day, Donagh Maher, Stephen Kilruane, Mikey Ryan, if they go and beat us fair play to you, but we're not going to allow this guy score 2-8. If he does scores 2-18 again, there's a fair chance or something like to it, Burgess are going to win. But I do fancy, I think Ross Gray probably have the better spread of forwards. It might be enough. And interesting to see Eddie Brennan is helping out there for the last few weeks. So like they're really going all in Ross Gray to try and get back up to senior level this year.
So Gurton Who have been very impressive this year, and I just wonder though, like would St. Mary's have that extra bit of quality, like Seamus Kennedy there, assuming he's flying, Peter McGarry, you know, would they have that extra bit of class in this game?
Geez, I don't know. I've tipped Gurton Who here. I just think they've done everything right so far in the championship, and I think the fact that they were comfortable 3-point winners over Portrue in the quarterfinals says a lot for me. Like I've great time for Portrue. Like they're just so hard to beat, and the fact that Gurton Who, I wouldn't say made light work with them, but it was only a couple of late scores got Portrue back within 3. Gurton Who were full value for that win. I think they're playing at such a high level at the moment, and I just think it's a fascinating game, and the fact that these two teams met in the intermediate final 5 years ago, and St. Mary's won that game rather comfortably. And like you see now 5 years on, one of them is going to be one game away from senior level. Just shows the development both teams have taken on over the last 5 years. And you do look at St. Mary's. Look, you have the names, the Seamus Kennedys, you have the Peter McGarrys, you have the Ross Peters, and you think you have Upperchurch going for a double. You have some of these commercials. Sean, St. Mary's guys are going for a double as well. Like, so you can't rule that out as well. So that they're chasing. I don't know. I do think, like, take out the St. Mary's match against Burgess for the rest of the key players, and that invariably that's probably what kept Burgess in the championship. I do think it'd be fascinating if we ended up with a St. Mary's Burgess final, and you got to a situation where Burgess won it, and you look back 6 weeks earlier, think if St. Mary's had put a first team out and knocked Burgess out, Burgess would have been out of job. I'd love that storyline if it comes to pass, but I suppose the way I've been tipping, I don't see Burgess or St. Mary's getting to the final either, so that probably means both of them will win their semi-finals this weekend. So
yeah, and seeing as you mentioned relegation, the teams that are in there now are Kildangan's second team and Carrick Swan. It'd be a bitter pill to swallow for Carrick Swan if they were knocked down another level by another club's second team.
Oh, it would, but to be going knocked down as South Senior champions, like you think the South Championship this year was sort of a giant effort with the Premier Intermediate clubs because there were so few of them, and the Swan ended up winning it, and now potentially, if they lose, they won't get a chance to defend their South Senior Championship next year because they'll be down in intermediate. And I suppose from their point of view, slumming it with their great rivals in the Davins, like, but I suppose that would get the be chances of that great El Carico derby come back again. But look, it's a massive game for the Swan. I do think we've seen Kildangan so far this year. They've been very, very competitive with their second team in Premier Intermediate. Like, they probably feel maybe they should have beaten Newport the last day to stay up, but definitely the more pressures on the Swans this weekend to get over the line. And I know it all depends how to cope with it. I think Kildangan will be more relaxed about it, because I think while they'll do everything in their power to stay up Premier Intermediate, I think they won't be too perturbed if their second team ended up back in intermediate, because they'll probably feel they have a better chance of maybe winning more games and be more successful in intermediate maybe next year.
Yeah, there's plenty. There's 4 quarterfinals on in the intermediate hurling championship this weekend. You're obviously involved in one of them with Laura against Burris Kane on Saturday at 2:00 in Nina. Drummond Inch will meet Knockavilla, Doneski, Kickham's and Cashel at the same time. And then on Sunday, Moneygall will meet Kilsheal and Kilcash in Clonoulty at 1:00. And Skeen Irinky will do battle with Goal and Kilfeacle in the Clonmel sports field at the same time as well. Jeez, it's how much of these games are you even going to get to see? You probably only get to see the one that you're involved in.
Yeah, that's it, Jim, more or less. It's 5 weeks since we've played, and I think it's 4 or 5 weeks since most of the teams have played, because we've been with the playoff and then the preliminary quarterfinals delayed things as well. So look, it's just delighted to get going again, and look at from my point of view with Laura, it's a local derby. It's just the boys down the road in Burris, and look, it's going to be it's a quarter final, but it's a derby as well. And we always know these things that these matches can go a couple of different ways. So look, we just hope we perform to our level and hopefully get the right result. But like they're 4 very, very tight games to call on paper as well. Like so, I suppose that's as much as I can say. I can't say too much more.
Yeah, Moneygall and Kilsheal and Kilcash could be a tasty enough one. Mark Keogh, Joe Fogarty, Sean Kennelly. There's plenty of good forwards there.
Yeah, I suppose on that one, it's a repeat of last year's semi-final, which Kilsheal won pretty comfortably. So like you think Moneygall will be eyeing up a bit of revenge here, but Kilsheal, now they're out with the football, will have got a chance maybe to focus more on hurling. I know that an injury problem with Paul Maher after the Borlahan match, whether he'll be fit to go again. So it would just be fascinating to see do Kilsheal click back into gear now that their focus is fully on hurling, or can Moneygall maybe use last year's motivation as a way of getting them to a semi-final.
And Skeena Inky must be on the crest of a wave after getting to a Munster junior final last year against Ballygiblin, that they're going this well again now in the Intermediate Championship this year. Yeah,
they settled in very well. Like, and that was a good group to come out of Versacane, Kickham's and Ballynahinch. So, and they're into the quarterfinals now, up against Golden, who they came through our groups in second place. I think they lose the West final, I think, but like they've been going all right. In the last few games without Jack Leamy, he's carrying a bit of a knock. I'm not sure whether will be fit in time to play this weekend against Skaheen. I think if he is fit, I think it might be enough to swing it their way. But you look, Skaheen and Ballypreen have been out with the football for a couple of weeks now, so they've been able to throw all their ducks into a row. And like you say, after the run into junior hurling last year, they probably just feel they're invincible at the moment. So, and I wouldn't be, I fancy maybe Skaheen to get to the semi-final.
Okay, and then finally, I suppose the Camogie's on this weekend, senior semi-finals. Drummond against Airog and Acarty and Clonmel meet Cashel. So,
yeah, I suppose I think they're probably the 4 teams, maybe not discounting maybe Burge to her, are probably the 4 teams you'd expected maybe to get to this stage. If Drum going for the 4 in a row of senior titles, and they beat Anacarty by, I think it was 8 points in the group stage a couple of weeks ago. So they'll probably be expected to get to another final. But I think that the fact that Anacarty were so impressive in beating Burge to her in the quarter final, they'll take a lot of confidence from that. They're an up and coming team, probably more inexperienced team than Drum, and I think maybe that experience will get them over the line for Drum. And the second semi final, you have probably the same. You have an experienced Clonmel team up against an up and coming Cashel team, but you have a Cashel team that this year have got the likes of Philly Fogarty and Una O'Dwyer back, players from winning Tip All Ireland from Tip 20 years ago. Like, you just see that, and like they were young in that Tip team, but that great Tip Camogie team, it just shows you coming back your late 30s, that there's still the value of experience and guiding some of those young Cashel girls along, like the Quiver Purdue and Karen Blair. Like, so this will be very, very tight for me. I think, haven't seen Clonmel play recently against Nina. I think Clonmel experience might be enough, particularly having the likes of Van at full forward. You have Casey Hennessy in the Claude Quirk. I think maybe their experience and have been in finals in the last couple of years and been in the final last year and coming up short. And maybe after the tough year the Clonmel club have had, maybe it'll be their girls that bring them through to some silverware at the end of this year.
Okay, well, that's it from the show this week. A lot of big games coming this weekend. We'll be back again next Wednesday as ever with Tippcast. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the newspaper in the meantime. Thanks very much, Shane.
Sure, Shane.